So, this one is, this one's a newer one. I had done this one just a while back, and it kind of came about through a conversation with one of my friends, actually. And I realized that I've done this a million times, and I think a lot of us do this all the time, and it's a shame, and I think it's a problem, because what this has to do with and deal with is something that keeps a lot of musicians from being really productive, and finishing a lot of the things that they initially start, So we'll get into it, and it's a string about second guessing yourself. The second guessing that the mind can present itself with is one of the musician's greatest adversaries. A song, a riff, an idea can be completed, but once its initial mystique has been over-intellectualized, the idea becomes clouded with anxiety and self-doubt. The mind second-guesses its creativity by building a false sense of perspective that it believes is the listener, the potential audience. One must have confidence in himself and his work to not tangle with his own decisions. One has no right to empathy when empathy may derail self-progression. Most intuitive thoughts are extensions of identity, and identity is the fish, the net of art desires. So with this one, it's pretty much the idea that a lot of us, when we start projects, when we start a song, any piece of art, there's a point in the process of finishing those aspects of it that we begin to second guess the work. And as I said in the passage, that opinion to me comes from a place in the mind and in a space of thought that has to do with the artist coming out of trying to get away from their own perspective and going into the perspective of the potential audience, a potential listener. And for some reason, every time that happens, it's associated with something negative. For some reason, when the artist goes to a different perspective, that perspective tears down the initial mystique, the initial love and drive for whatever you had just created. It feels that it's that the piece of work is not worthy, And when you sit back and think about it, it can almost not make any sense, because you're convincing yourself that something that you initially enjoyed isn't good from a place, from a perspective that isn't even yours. You've made up a place in your mind to go to pretend that you're observing your own music from somebody that is not you, and I don't think that's right, I think that's like a mental maze that we can get into and just kind of get lost in. And as I said earlier, it's a shame, because we can get to those points and dismiss and totally discard something that initially could have been brilliant, that is brilliant, because as I said in the passage, if you come across your music, if you look at it and your intuition is your intuitive thought about it is excitement, is acceptance, then that's really what it is. That is the perception that your audience and your listener or your viewer can potentially have. There are a lot of creative minds that become derailed, become, slide into that mental gutter because they never want to accept what they do. And in the end, they can sometimes give up, give up that initial drive that they've had, for whatever they're doing, in whatever they're doing. So pretty much in this passage, the turnaround is that stay with the excitement that you initially have with whatever you've created. Because you yourself are looking at yourself. And if you stay with that positive energy initially, you're gaining confidence because you're accepting what you're doing yourself. If you never accept what you are doing, you'll never be, what you want to be as a musician, as an artist, or even as a person, And that's one of the worst things that can happen, is when somebody is mentally lost because of the lack of knowledge they have towards their own identity, And that's the whole point of doing art or and music and all of that, is to find yourself in that, so that you can be a more productive person, be a more positive and aware person. So, as overanalyzed as it may be, these are the little angles and aspects that I think are very important in the creative process, because it turns around into a very personal experience that can have nothing to do with music, can have more to do with you as a person and how you feel as somebody that deserves to have a good life, and that good life is guided by your ambitions, and your ambitions are music, art, all of these things, So accept what you make right away if you enjoy it right away.